welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another edition of Hit It Where They Mow, Talking Golf in Texas. I'm Pat Wheeler, and I am excited today to be talking to Mr. Jeffrey Brower, one of the top golf architects in the United States, and one who designed a course that is one of our sponsors, the Tempest Golf Club in Longview, Texas. We'll be talking to General Manager Randy Wade later in the program about the Tempest and some of the things specifically about that. But first things first, Mr. Jeffrey Brower, I have had the pleasure of knowing you now going on about 4 or 5 years, and I just want to welcome you to our new podcast, Hit It Where They Mow, Talking Golf in Texas. Welcome to our show.
Well, thanks, Pat. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, sometimes even on air, always off the air, right?
Exactly. We've had some great conversations. Like a lot of golfers, I'm an amateur player, and I'm even more an amateur when it comes to golf course architecture. I kind of know, it's kind of like art. I don't know much about art. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. But tell us a little bit about your background. You grew up very close to one of the iconic courses in America, and from an early age, you knew you wanted to be a golf course architect. And I think that's an interesting story. So just kind of fill us in on your background, getting started in the architecture business.
Yeah. Well, as it happened, my next door neighbors belonged to Medina Country Club. I grew up in the Chicago area, obviously. And he asked me out on a Monday when we didn't have to pay the greens fee because the club was closed. And we ended up playing all 54 holes there. So I had always been a doodler and a design kind of personality. I took a test later on, and they said I was a design personality. And we had lunch or something. I stole the placemats that had the course layout and went home and told my parents I was going to be a golf course architect. So,
and how old were you at that time?
I was 12.
That's an incredible story. Incredible. Yeah, and I used to doodle. I took up golf around 12, and I remember being in junior high or high school, and the old book covers we had, drawing golf holes on there, and they were not too sophisticated, but they were something to do, to have fun. And then driving along the highway or something and seeing a landscape or a tract of land, I would say, oh, wow, that'd be a great hole right there. So
well, did all of that and just made the decision to keep going. Like I say, of course, the first test of whether you're going to be a golf course architect is whether you let anyone talk you out of it. So you probably had a few people tell you were nuts. I just didn't listen. So,
well, I think that's, I always wanted to be a pro golfer, so I never really thought about being an architect or anything. That's something that came later in life. But so tell us a little bit about, I think it's very, of course, I know your story kind of, and I've looked back and wouldn't you know it, I couldn't find my copy before we came down to the studio today. But doing the story, I believe it was in September of 18. Was that it when the Tempest opened?
Yeah, and I had the contact in June of 16. I remember that because I just moved into my new house there in Arlington. So it takes about 2 years to get things rolling.
Right. And so I remember you saying at the time that how you got to DFW is an interesting story.
Well, yeah. So I've gone through the phone books, after I'd worked as an apprentice with Killian and Nugent, which was a Chicago-based landscape architecture firm I hired on right out of college. Decided I'd learn more going on my own 7 years later in 1984. Also my 29th birthday, I walked in and told them I was going to quit. But picking Dallas was a matter of going to the local library where they had yellow pages all over the country. And Dallas was the only one without a golf course architect listed. So it was, honey, we're moving to Dallas. Cheap but good marketing, I always say.
Wow. And so tell us about the first courses you designed, maybe in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or just it might have been other places. I know you had a working relationship with Larry Nelson. You can touch on that, but kind of get us rolling as far as your career in designing courses.
Well, my first two projects in 1984, one was a 9-hole expansion to Northwood Country Club in Shreveport. Mm-hmm. And, just like anybody starting a business, you have to have a little lucky break. And the guy who was heading up that committee happened to have worked for an irrigation contractor and just gone on his own. So he was very sympathetic to a guy who had worked for a golf course architect and just gone on his own. He says, yeah, we know that you did all the work or most of the work, And so they hired me. Also, City of Plano took a chance on me to remodel the then Plano Muni. I think it's called Pecan Hollow now. And then a few months after that, Larry Nelson's agent was in Dallas, and I was actually, hate to say it, but sitting in my recliner taking a nap when the phone rang. It was Larry's agent here in Dallas, avoiding a long-distance phone call because those cost you in those days. And was asking, if Larry had a chance to design a job in Marietta, Georgia, near Atlanta. And, he didn't know what he was doing, obviously. He wanted to find an architect who wasn't well-known, but who knew what they were doing, and they checked me out a little bit and figured I was good for that. So we ended up doing 3 or 4 courses with Larry. Gaylord Springs, and it was originally the Opryland course in Nashville. The first one was Brookstone near Atlanta, which is still open and doing well. And then the last one I think we did together was Avocet and Wild Wing in Myrtle Beach.
So the Centennial course north of Atlanta that Larry Nelson designed was not with you?
No, that was with me. But
was it? Okay.
Neglected to mention it because it's now under a subdivision.
That's correct. That's correct. Now, I have played Brookstone, which I liked a lot, and I had a wonderful round of golf at the one in Nashville there, Gaylord Springs, one of those 4-man scrambles where our team won. We won a big prize and everything. So it was just that course is kind of flat by the river there. I liked that course a lot. And as I've told you, I've played Avocet twice in Myrtle Beach during the quote World Amateur, and have enjoyed it. It was my favorite course the first year, and I was real tickled we got to play it the second year. I did not realize that you did Pecan Hollow. It's another golf course I think the world of. Of course, the original designer was Don January.
Yes.
Saw Don just recently and had a chance to visit with him. Still going strong at 93.
Wow.
But I love that course. Now, the one that's in Plano or Frisco that's so popular that you did, it's a very good course as well.
Ridgeview Ranch, probably.
Yes.
That was also for the city of Plano. It's kind of a joint venture between a golf management company, the city. Still, I think, kind of the prototype for getting public golf courses built for reasonable cost for the city.
There's something about that course, I guess it being a public course in that particular neighborhood or part of the DFW area, but I never drive by there when the parking lot's not full. It's just a lot. It gets a lot of play.
Yeah, whenever I've talked to them, and this goes for several years, and a couple different management companies, they say they get 65,000 rounds, which if you run the math on Dallas weather is almost impossible, or at least it's chock full. And they've told me that for years. And, the best compliments I've gotten is sometimes private clubs like Glen Eagles have told me they end up moving their events over there because people just like the course.
Wow, interesting. And the one I haven't played, I'm sorry to say, is Tangle Ridge, which gets very high reviews down in Grand Prairie. So speak to that a little bit.
Well, Tangle Ridge probably put me on the map. Got hired by the city of Grand Prairie, and again, just the serendipity. The parks director there had played a course I did in Ruidoso, the Links of Sierra Blanca, and loved it. And so that's why they picked me. And it's a great course. I'm surprised so many years later that people from North Dallas have not made the trip down to play it. Like you,
right?
Heathens, I guess.
Right.
But I will tell you, in my opinion, it's one of the best courses I've done, and it's certainly worth the drive. And was influenced a lot. I'd just gotten back from a trip to Australia where I'd been asked to speak, and it took extra time and played Royal Melbourne and all those Australian courses, and it was influenced the bunkers and some of the strategy.
Who was the Royal Melbourne designer?
Well, Alistair Mackenzie took a boat trip to Australia in 26 and managed to rack up 5 or 6 different clubs to consult with, and he left the plans with a guy named Russell Morcom who actually built them. He's probably the guy who had the flair for the bunkers. But yeah, it's Mackenzie straight. There'd been an existing course at Royal Melbourne, and there's 4 holes you can kind of still see the remnants of early 1900s, but he redid the whole thing. And then for the Ryder Cup and other major tournaments, they actually combined, there's an east and a west, and they combine most of the west, which is better, with 4 holes on the east to get the tournament layout.
I think that's the one President Cup that the International won. They beat us pretty good over there at Royal Melbourne. I can't say that very well. 1 year. Yeah, and one of our this is a great time to talk about our sponsors. Of course, the Tempest Golf Club. We're going to talk about that and your story with that. right off I-20, actually closest probably to Liberty City, Texas, but Longview, you're right at the Longview area there. About a 2-hour drive from Dallas to play a course that's very dramatic with hills, trees, lakes, similar to topography of an Augusta National. So the TempestGolfClub.com. Also, architectural-wise, Dornick Hills is one of our sponsors this show. I love that place. It's the home course of the great Perry Maxwell. We'll talk a little bit about your loving the history of golf course architecture and his place there. And then, of course, the Golf Bank of Texas, Veritex Bank, and Malcolm Holland and Martin Thomas and that whole group there, just wonderful sponsors of our show. And Niagara Plumbing. We know as golfers to avoid the water hazards on the golf course. Avoid the water hazards at home with Niagara Plumbing. It's low-flow toilets that they sell through Home Depot and other retail outlets. And they're a big sponsor of the Volunteers of America and the LPGA. And we're going to do a show on the LPGA and the Volunteers of America to highlight Niagara Plumbing. But you, and then we're going to have Randy Wade on a little bit, are highlighting the Tempest Golf Club. And let's just get into that. I think that's an incredible story. Mr. Joe Bruno, a wonderful attorney, trial lawyer over in New Orleans, took possession of this golf course, bought it, and then brought you in. And tell us how that happened and about going over there. And I remember visiting it the first time when it was just carved fairways. They hadn't even laid any sod on it yet.
Yeah. Well, around 2016, Joe acquired almost by default. I think he'd been part owner of the old Southern Hills golf course there in Gladewater and wanted to know what to do with it. He retained a business consultant, Serious Golf Advisors, who specialize in golf course pro formas and things like that, and decided that the only way to make it go was go big. I mean, when I first visited the site, I said, well, this is about the worst golf course I've ever seen on the best potential site I've ever seen. So it needed some transformation, and Joe, who had redone his house and his office and won AIA awards, he was just into doing things. If it's good design, he wanted to do it. So it was a wonderful attitude for a client to have and a wonderful opportunity given the land. The other thing about it was the golf course that sat there had been crammed in to probably the worst land out there, and there was an available area which is now holds 12, 13, 14, 15, part of 16. And it just laid out with a big hill in the middle for great golf course lots, looking down on the golf course, and the land was fantastic. So we got rid of the old holes, and the course only totaled 5,400 yards or something like that. So with the new land and rejiggering the holes on the existing land, we came up with a 7,200-yard championship tee course. Of course, proportional tees all the way down to under 6,000 for men and under 5,000 for typically women, but slower swing players. And it just was a great opportunity. I mean, the land was so good. My job was not to screw it up somehow.
I remember one of my favorite places in the world is up in Kansas there. And now I'm having Prairie Dunes. I've averted a senior moment there. I was having one. And I remember Leon Howard. I was trying to talk about Leon Howard earlier today. I don't want to go off on that rabbit trail, but he was a designer of Hurricane Creek in Anna and Webb Hill and Bonham and Van Zandt Country Club down in Canton. Kind of an unknown entity to a lot of people. But anyway, Perry Maxwell's famous statement is there's 100 good golf holes here. I've got to pick out 18. And maybe you didn't have that much land from Joe, but you had a lot of land to pick out the holes. And, how does that, I think you and I talked about that when I wrote the article. How does that work? As you're walking the property, you begin to envision what the hole will look like. How does that work?
Yeah, like I say, a lot of people see dead people. I see golf holes, but... there's some tricks to it, and if I tell you, I'll have to shoot you. But no, in reality, you're looking most often, not always, for the high points for tees because you want to be able to see where you're going, and the easiest way is to be at least gently downhill. We got over that new section, that triangle of holes. I mean, I had, 16 goes downhill. I had the option of rerouting them the other direction in that loop. And really the reason I didn't, because 16 would have been flipped would have been so far uphill you wouldn't have really had a chance to see where you're going. So you really can't plan strategy unless you can see all the hazards. And we like to make a course visually attractive and not particularly difficult. So seeing where you're going starts that. And green sites always work best. I mean, if you look at the 12th hole out there, you got the par 3, you got the tee, you got the creek, and the green sets in a gentle upslope. And, greens generally slope back to front. So you're looking for high points and then green sites on a gentle upslope, and then, a way to connect them with holes of the right length.
One of the holes that's probably the most beautiful at the Tempest is it the 14th, maybe the 15th? No, the 14th. It's just a par 4, but it's carved out of that East Texas wood line, and it's a very subtle dogleg to the left, I think, down to the green, very subtle. But that hole, just of itself, to me, is the essence of the Tempest, in that it's just the beauty of the layout. It's not one of the hillier holes. It's basically pretty flat. But anyway, I just love that hole, and I remember just an occasion where I played with my friend, the late Craig Bivens, and we played, just two of us played 18 holes there one day and enjoyed it. And he had a great shot there, and it's in my memory forever. And I remember he was really bragging. He said, "Is that any good?" And I thought, give me a break, But anyway, it was a 6-iron he hit in there. It was real pretty shot. We're going to talk to Randy about some of the things they've got going on over there, but it's been very well received. Now, it has its challenges. It's one thing that I was unaware of, and I don't know that you were even aware of, is some of the rocky soil there, which is kind of weird. I didn't realize East Texas had that. I thought it was mainly all sand-based, and you have some of that sandy loam there, but you also have some of that iron ore, which, who knows, I guess God made it that way.
Yeah, we saw sandy soil out there, and again, my first project, just a little east in Shreveport, had sandy soil. So it looks sandy.
Right.
It has a high iron ore content. So you'd think you put the catch basins in and they should drain all the way around it, but it turns out as the water collects there, it sat on top longer. So I think they've gone back over time and added a wider gravel ring around the basins to make sure they drain faster. But yeah, the soil looked a lot better than it really was. So.
Yeah, and it's something that they just continue to have to work on, but it can be good. You can get a lot of roll out of it, perhaps. But and you've got some extraordinary greens there too. I'm thinking about number 10 and number 8. Some big rolling hill greens. Tell us about that.
Well, I've never felt that you should have a course, that's a small green course or a flat green or a rolling green course. Maybe my style was more eclectic.
Okay.
But I always look for 1 or 2 holes, where basically the contour of the greens is the real challenge. So 8 is, we extended it up the hill, so it's kind of a longer par 4, no real bunkers into play. So really you hit the green, but you want to hit the right part of the green. And 10 is a sort of a triple level green on a par 5 that most people aren't going to hit into. And then, hopefully you're on the right deck. If not, you've got a tricky putt up or down a tier there. So
yeah, you got several tiers there, I think.
Yeah, 3, I think, unless they've added to it. I don't know.
No, it's 3. It's 3. Yeah. So anyway, it's challenging, but it's fun, and it's not too hard by any means, and it's very, very accessible. As I said, it's maybe 2 miles from the interstate, and we'll talk more about that with Randy Wade. Now, you're doing something now which I find very interesting. You're involved with the American Institute of Architecture,
American Society of Golf Course
American
Architects.
Society of Golf Course Architects, and you just had a meeting, and you were telling me about it. So, kind of fill us in a little bit about your role now in the world of architecture, and kind of what that means and what you just recently attended.
Yeah, well, I have been a member of the American Society of Golf Course Architects since 1981. I was in short pants at the time, obviously. And I've always believed in the value of that group and the others in the golf business to try to improve, being an architect. Always did a lot of things for them. I was their president in 96 for their 50th anniversary. And, they came up with this job position coming out of COVID called Director of Outreach, believing that, one, we just hadn't stayed in touch with members or the rest of the industry. And to everybody in the industry and anyone who's planning trade shows and whatever, just up their game to what I call must-see TV. I mean, no one's going to travel to go to a conference unless it really, really has good content. So they offered me that position, and I'm 68 in a week, so I was been doing this a year now. I was slowing down, ready to call it quits, but the wife says, "Well, you can do the dishes, you can do the lawn work, you can clean the pool. I don't want to do any of those things, honey." She said, "Well, better find a job, And fortunately, this was a job, probably the only job I would have quit being an architect for, is to serve the architects. So I've been an architect for 45 years. If I spend the last 5 or so years of my career helping the next generation, helping the profession. I mean, I'm working with the R&A and the USGA on sustainability, environmental issues, working with the Disabled Golfers Association and all those sorts of things for both, sustainability and better design. So it's been a 1 year, and it's been a hoot, really. It was the right choice for me. It's been fun.
What does that mean, sustainability?
Well, it's environmental issues, really,
Okay.
but as opposed to, we had a big environmental movement maybe back in the early 90s, but it was kind of focused on site stuff. I mean, sustainability, now the environmentalists have taken a broader look about everything you do. I mean, for example, Ricky Fowler, I think, and a few others on the Pro Tour have gotten some criticism for their carbon footprint because they take private jets everywhere. And actually, there's some golf clubs trying to create carbon offsets by better practices to kind of reduce theirs, which is incredible to me. It's the whole thing is it's all tied together, and a lot of little things add up to something big. And golf, like I say, has done a great job, needs to do better. Everybody needs to do better.
So water usage is a big part of it, isn't it? Like they want to lessen that as much as they can?
Yeah, that is true. And, superintendents around here and in Georgia and a couple other states have really done a great job with best management practices. And most golf courses don't use the amount of water that people think they do. I mean, if it's 500,000 gallons a night, I mean, some people think that's, tremendous or too much. But again, we do need to use less. I mean, states are taking control of the water. I mean, Texas took control of the surface water 10 or 15 years ago. Now they're taking control of wells as well. You can't get a permit for anything over 200 gallons a minute without going through a lot of hoops. And
Interesting.
so water's certainly one of the big issues, and I think it'll be solved by a lot of little things. I mean, the agronomy. I mean, one of the ones is the Tahoma 31. It uses a lot less water than some of the older Bermudas, the 419 Classic. It got kind of a black eye at the Super Bowl, but I think that was because they planted it or sodded it less than a month.
They painted it too.
Well, they painted it too, yeah, because it would be dormant.
So what's this Tahoma? What is that?
It's just another breed. I mean, turf grass
It's
breeders.
a Bermuda grass?
Yes.
Out of Tifton, Georgia?
I'm
Probably.
not sure where it
Yeah,
comes.
okay.
You shouldn't have asked me that because
That's okay.
You can cut that later.
Well, no. I love Tifton, Georgia, because I've lived in Atlanta for a good while.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah.
you've done a lot of business in Georgia. And,
Yeah.
So, what about the future in architecture? I'm involved right now with course ratings to the Dallas Morning News. You might be as well. I'm not sure if you're on that or not.
I've sort of dropped that.
Yeah, but 9-hole courses, and I went and played the Oaks up in Greenville, and as the guest of Jerry Ransom, and Jerry brought in the superintendent from the Lakes at Castle Hills, who's a great guy, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. Might be Haley, but anyway. But will we see the reemergence of maybe 9-hole courses because of this water and sustainability thing?
I think so. And the other trend, there have been several 12-hole courses. So the tradition that binds us to 18 holes seems to finally be loosening. And if you got land for 12 holes, a friend of mine, another architect, Damien Pascuzzo, was out there in California, and they were going to do 36 holes. They did the traditional, and they had enough land left for 9 regulation or 12 sort of a pitch and putt combo. And the thing is just packed. I mean, the biggest distance issue in golf really is from your front door to the tee, and this is part of that subdivision and 1,000 homes or whatever. And on weekdays, I mean, people just like to come home. They don't have time for 18, so 9 to 12. It's not that hard a course, so it appeals to beginners. I mean, the other thing they did was actually painted lines. Studies have shown that golfers who are interested in golf, I mean, they can do top golf, but they're afraid to actually go in the pro shop. They don't know where to pay. They don't know where the first tee is. And they actually paint lines everywhere and give you stop one, stop two, stop two. They do everything they can to get rid of the barriers to starting on-course golf.
Interesting. I remember the book that I wrote 10 or so years ago, When Golf Was Fun, the late great beer and barbecue circuit. And there were some stories about the Texas Women's University course, which I'm not sure if it's still there. I know the North Texas course is gone, but it was a 14-hole course. So you played the first 4 holes twice. So that's how you got your 18 holes. But anyway, and I know that one of the things that was brilliant by Trip Davis in redoing Willowbrook over in Tyler was they gave him an abandoned tract of land that once occupied 2 holes, a par 4 and a par 3, and he built a beautiful 4-hole short course in there with the modern green complexes and so forth, and that was kind of his dress rehearsal to get to renovate the regular course. So we're seeing more and more of that. Anyway, just right off the top of my head before we bring in Randy, just of your resume or your cachet of courses, just your personal favorites. I'm thinking about I want to say Sand Station, but I know that's not it.
Sand Creek Station, yeah.
Sand Creek Station. I am planning a driving trip this summer, and I'm going to go play that because I'm going to go up to Wichita. I'm going to veer off and play that because I drove around and looked at it. It's fabulous.
Yeah. Well, let me know because the pro called just a few weeks ago and said, yeah, if you want to come up, play and give them some tips on where they're going.
I could do a review of it. I could write a little review of it. But I know you did some work up in Minnesota, another place I want to visit.
Yeah, my claim to fame, as it were, is both in Minnesota and Kansas. I've got 3 of the top 5 public courses in both states, 4 of the top 10.
Excellent.
And, like I say, if you want to play my best, I'd say you go to northern Minnesota. We have the Quarry at Giants Ridge, and the Legend. One's a typical Northwoods course with all the trees. The other, just to make it look different, they found it and beat some environmental regulations, an old quarry. So it looks a lot like the old World Woods or a little bit like public Pine Valley. And it's gotten great acclaim. And then 25 miles away is Wilderness at Fortune Bay. It's an Indian casino course. And then over on the East Coast, we did Superior National. And if you can believe this, almost every hole has a view of Lake Superior, but those aren't the prettiest holes on the course. Some of the interior holes sit along the only privately owned rushing rapids, emptying into Lake Superior. So you get into the course, and to me, it's prettier than seeing the lake. So, I mean, it's beautiful and a little bit easier than the other courses.
Just for my trip planning, is there a southernmost course that you have that because I don't know if for me to go all the way to northern Minnesota is going to be quite the drive, but I might do it. But I'm just saying, is there one in the southern area?
Well, we did the one in the Rio Grande Valley, Tierra Santa, and
not that far south. I'm talking about southern Minnesota.
Oh, no.
No, they're all up in the north.
Yeah.
Okay. I got you. Well, that's cool. What about any in Wisconsin or just Minnesota?
No, those have been all just consulting and remodels. So
Okay. Well, yeah, and just your personal favorites looking back before we bring Randy on.
Yeah. Well, mine or overall?
Yours. Yeah.
Well, those in Minnesota, 3 in Kansas, if we go there, Sand Creek, Colbert Hills, and Firekeeper, and they're all ranked 1, 2, 3 in the state for public courses. Wow. Obviously, none of them's better than Prairie Dunes, but
wow.
And then, you mentioned Avocet Wild Wing, and that was the first one that made the Golf Digest best new list, so that kind of put me on the map nationally. And then, I got a baker's dozen of them around here, including Tangle Ridge, which, doesn't have housing around it, so just on the perimeter. So, yeah, those are among my best.
Well, you've already got me wanting to go play Minnesota because of the World Woods comparison. And, of course, they were recently bought by Cabot Resorts, and it's going to be, I'm sure, very expensive, but it'll be very nice once they renovate that. But that is about 50 miles north of Tampa. Ladies and gentlemen, be on the lookout for the new World Woods opening. They're going to call it something else, I'm sure, but Cabot Resorts will have that. And we're about ready to bring Mr. Randy Wade onto the show so we can talk a little bit more about the Tempest Golf Club in particular, or specifically. And so we'll look forward to that. And Randy, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, hi Jeff. Hey Pat.
Good to see you, man. And you telling me behind you there is one of the holes there at the Tempest.
Say one more time.
Which one? Which hole is that?
Which hole?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble.
I am too.
Okay, you can't hear us?
I can hear you a little bit.
Little bit. Okay.
Looks like he's looking down the 10th fairway out of his office.
Okay, the 10th fairway there.
Yeah, 10th fairway.
Or we should say fairways.
Right. The 10th has a split fairway, doesn't it? That's right.
Yes.
Randy, tell us what's going on at the Tempest this springtime.
Well, it's starting to green up a little bit out here. We have these 75 and 80 degree days like we have here today. It's very windy, but we've got a lot of golfers. Happy President's Day playing when they're on their day off. So they're enjoying Jeff Brower's course.
Are you having any kind of tournament for President's Day? No.
We just got a lot of bankers that are off and people that are off from their other jobs playing golf today.
I'll tell you, that's you don't need a tournament to go enjoy playing golf. Tell us a little bit about the Tempest Golf Club, your operational side. I know you're open on Mondays, so that's a cool deal when a lot of the private courses are closed.
Yeah, we try to pick up some extra business on Monday. Through the winter, we're open 7 days a week. And during March 7th, we will close on Tuesdays for maintenance day. So our outstanding superintendent, Stephen Killingsworth, can do all things that he does a great job of keeping this golf course in great shape all the time. So we're very pleased with what he does out there.
I did not realize that. Shame on me. In the winter, it's open 7 days a week. But we tell everyone the Tempest Golf Club, or just tempestgolfclub.com, right?
That's where you can book your tee time, or you see get a lot of information there on our website about rates and those type things. And you can book your tee time right there, or you can call the Pro Shop at 903-984-5335 and book tee time in our Pro Shop.
Tell us about Randy Wade and the Tempest. I've known you, Randy, from your days. Well, I guess when I moved back to Dallas in about 2011, met you soon after that, and I'm having another one of those senior moments. But it was a great little golf course there outside of Canton, Texas. Tell us a little bit about that particular course, and then moving over to the Tempest. And I guess you've been at the Tempest now, what, 5 years? 4 to 5 years?
We're on our 5th year, Pat, and it's been a great experience. And, we just had our best January ever. So we're really happy about the numbers, the way they're looking, and had a great year last year. It's going to be hard to duplicate the year we had last year with the weather. But we have had some weather in late January, early February, but it's going well here. You mentioned the course in Canton, Twin Lakes Golf Course.
Twin Lakes, yes.
Yeah, Twin Lakes. It was another top 10 public course, and I was there for 10 years. I went over there in 2009 and 2008, and stayed there till 2017. And they decided they were going to close, and because they could, they had a tornado come through, knock down the nursery office, and Mr. Deckers was talking to injured people, and the CPA said, you've got cattle over in one field and hay in another field, and you put that on that golf course, you cut all those millions of dollars in property tax you pay in half. So it was kind of a business decision, a no-brainer for them. They're great people, and I enjoyed my time there. But it led me to another great place at Tempest, and I met Mr. Bruno during the construction stages, and was fortunate enough to get hired, and I'm blessed.
Absolutely. And Twin Lakes, just to let everybody know, they had Yellow Jackets there too. My first time I played there, I got attacked by Yellow Jackets, and I was glad actually that they attacked me and not my brother, because he's allergic to that kind of thing. And so I got popped several times. But anyway, it was a great golf course. And one time we were playing, and my brother said, and he was going through a difficult situation. He had lost his first wife, and we were there. And it was one of those days, Randy, where we had the place to ourselves. And he said, listen, just stop and listen. And we were on about the 15th hole, and it was like someone had cranked up the stereo for the bird sounds. It was in the spring, and this was a tree farm. This was the Decker family grows trees for Walmart and whomever, Home Depot. And so no telling how many thousands of birds were chirping. And it was just if you can't play a lick, it's just a good thing to enjoy golf that way. Yeah. And from the very beginning, Randy, the Tempest has been so good to me. The Bruno family, Melanie Till is a realtor here in Dallas. Not only can you go play the Tempest and enjoy the beautiful golf course, the fine restaurant there, but if you'd like to live there, you can buy real estate and build a home or buy a home near the Tempest. But from the moment I saw it, and Jeff and I talked about it a little bit earlier, Randy, I saw it when it was carved out. The fairways were carved out because I heard, hey, they're building a course outside of Longview. And I drove down and I drove around and looked at it. And of course, I wasn't aware of Southern Hills. I'd been over in Atlanta, Georgia for 20 years. But I said, oh my gosh, this is going to be a big golf course in East Texas. And I love Willowbrook and I love the Cascades and everything. And I love Pinecrest. And they're all great courses, but they're not big courses. What do I mean by big? Big hills, big trees, big wide
elevation change.
Yeah, big wide fairways, huge views. That view off 6T is as good as any view in East Texas. And so even if you're playing bad, just enjoy the beauty of it. And Randy, what's my comment? East Texas golf as it was meant to be, right?
That's exactly right. The day that Twin Lakes closed, the very following Monday, I came over here and drove around the construction site. Said, wow, this is where I really like to be. And it is the uniqueness of the elevation changes, the wide fairways, the uneven lies, and just the scenery that you see that with the tall pine trees, and it's a beautiful place. So I encourage you, if you hadn't been here, to go to our website, call us, book a tee time. We've got a couple of condos at the end of our range that we're having a special on our stay and play. If you book that before March 1, you get to stay. One night is $600, 2 nights is $1,200, 3 nights is $1,800. But guess what? The green fees are no cost. You pay for a cart. So it's a great program.
And you can get comfortably a foursome into each one of those condos, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, on that, can they click a button for stay and play, or they just need to call you at the golf shop?
Best way is call me.
Okay. Randy Wade, the Tempest Golf Club. It's a 903
984-5335.
984-5335. Let's do that again. 903
984-5335.
There you go, the Tempest Golf Club. And so
did Jeff tell you the story about correcting me on number 12 tee box?
I don't think he did, no.
Go ahead, Randy.
Are you still there, Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff's here. Okay. Yeah.
We were out looking at bunkers one day. Scott Harris, the contractor, was working with Jeff and trying to do the designs of the bunkers. And I was fortunate to be around with them and the greatness of Jeff Brower and his eye, and learn a lot while I was riding around with him. But we were standing on the back tee box on number 12 and looking at where the traps were going to be located. And I think they're already in place. We were just going to decide how we're going to design, the shape of the traps. And I said, Jeff, this is my favorite hole. It's got to be the signature hole. And Jeff turned to me very quickly and said, Randy, make no mistake. There's 18 signature holes here.
I have to tell you that I love number 12 too, Randy. And it's an eye catcher. It's got the ravine in front of it. It's got the beautiful green sitting there. And so I'm playing, the gold tees. I don't know what. It's 145 yards. And I'm playing in the Christmas tournament. And we were having a good time. We were playing well. And we ended up winning a little money even.
Good.
But on that particular hole, I just blacked out the flag. It was on the left side with a 7-iron, and I hit the 7-iron in the sweet spot. And it hits about 2 feet short. It ain't going to jump up on that green.
Yeah.
And I didn't use any profanity. Thank you, Lord, for helping me with that. Not that I'm a person that likes to do that anyway, but I was very demonstrative about it. And I turned around, and there's Melanie with her 2 little kids, and she's photographing the whole affair, unbeknownst to me. But that was a killer. I just thought, I'm really going to knock it close on Jeff's number 12 hole, but it didn't work out that way. Should have hit 6-iron. Sure. That hole was a little bit uphill, just a skosh.
More than you know. But Randy's being too modest, because I thought he was going to say after that whole thing, I handed him the paint can, so the bunkers are his shape. So that's why that stands out so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. He let me design a bunker. That was great.
Well, you know, a lot of golf is what you like in golf is how you play. And I was just recounting, Randy, earlier that one of my best memories with Craig Bivens was a great shot he hit on the 14th hole, which is one of the flatter holes, but it's so beautiful because it's just carved right out of the East Texas woods, and has a beautiful subtle left dogleg to it with the green sitting down there. Just indicative of the great holes out there. I remember going around the course with you, Jeff, and you said, this is such and such hole, this is such and such hole. And the first little, oh my, factor you get when you're riding around on the golf course or when you're playing it is when you get to the 4th hole, which is the 3-par. You call it a drop shot or something, but it's the sombrero hole. I love that. Tell us about the 4th hole, the sombrero hole, and I think that'll kind of give people another inkling of what this golf course is like.
Yeah, well, 1 through 4 were actually 4 of the holes we kept in the original positions, except that 4 was down by the creek, kind of paralleling it. And we looked up the hill and said, well, this would be a lot more dramatic. When Joe Bruno, again, being dedicated to quality, says, well, Joe, this is where it needs to be, but, you're going to lose a 50,000 or whatever lot.
Oh, my.
And he had no hesitation saying, if it's a better golf hole, let's move at least an alternate tee up there. And then the green, like say, I've used it before, but I always like to have a bailout area, and now you have the creek in front. So basically, we give it kind of looks like a sombrero or a bowler cap or whatever.
Sure.
With the the head part in the back. So it basically gives you a chance to just take an extra club and take the creek out of play, which is the smart play, by the way.
Absolutely. And you made me think of another thing I wanted to talk about, and that is Mr. Bruno and his. I don't know how you would describe him, but he's a wonderful guy, a wonderful family, and has an exquisite taste, and has this great artwork that is in the clubhouse. And I'm not, as I told you earlier, I'm the way I am with art is the way I am with golf courses. I don't know a lot about it, but I know what I like. And I was struck by the art in there, the pictures, the paintings of Napoleon. And I think I've said in the article, nothing says Louisiana like Napoleon. And of course, when you get to Longview, you're getting close to Shreveport, and you're getting close to Louisiana. It's got a different feel, a different vibe than Texas, than Dallas or Fort Worth. But that's a good thing because you're only 2 hours away.
Yeah.
But there's also a portrait in there, isn't there, Randy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that portrait is Mr. Jeff Brower. Now, that's impressive.
That was a first.
It is very impressive.
45 years, but there's an old saying, they better to hang the portrait than hang the architect. So we must have done okay out there.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think that's one of the things when you go into the clubhouse, you'll see a portrait of Mr. Jeff Brower. And so that's quite a story. And you've been so good. Randy's had media days over there, and you've attended it, and you've talked a little bit about architecture and that kind of thing. And I know it's something you're proud of. Yeah,
very proud of it. And, we always have agreed with our clients to help them with their ongoing marketing. We had a client way back when they had an advertising budget at 20,000 at 20,000 rounds. This was up in Minnesota. They dropped the budget to 14,000. They dropped to 14,000 rounds. So these kind of shows and the tournaments and the events that Randy put on, especially when you're a little bit remote. I mean, East Dallas does need a few more golf courses, and this is an easy outlet for East Dallas. Heck, I think it's worth driving from West Fort Worth to go over there a few times a year.
Oh, absolutely. It's not a hard drive at all. And like I say, it's so close to the interstate. Now, Randy, that brings up another thing about the specialness of the Tempest. And that's some of the people that are members there and live there. Now, I want to make very clear, it's semi-private. You can join, you can buy real estate there, or you can stay and play or pay a green fee. But you got a pretty good sized American flag near the golf range up there that I think is spectacular.
You know, about 3 years ago, one of our members who lives on the hill on 6, named Mike Clements, came to me and said, Randy, I really have a passion for our veterans and first responders, and I want to do something special for them. And, where can we locate a flag on the course where everyone around can see it? And so ended up being the third largest flagpole and flag in the state of Texas. And it is, we have a nice plaque there that is dedicated to the veterans and first responders. And, we're so glad to have a member like Mike Clements, and we are so glad to have the membership we have living on the course. We sold 2 lots recently, and 2 houses are under construction. 1 just completed. So there's a lot happening out here at Tempest. And, we're just semi-private, like Pat said, and we invite the public to come every day. And we really have something special here. If you haven't been out here, it's very unique to golf in East Texas, and with the rolling hills and elevation changes. And, we've been fortunate to land a couple of good big tournaments, U.S. Amateur Qualifier a couple summers ago. We've got Texas AM Qualifier here, and the Mid-Am Qualifier here this year. And then in 2025, we're going to have the 4-ball championship here. So we're looking forward to that. So there's a lot going on here. And
Texas Golf Association 4-ball championship.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah. And tell us about, correct me if I'm wrong, some young man when it first opened shot 63 or something, some high school kid or something. Tell us a little bit about that. And then you had, I think Sam Burns and David Toms came and played it, didn't they?
They did. And we had a young man from Rockwall that shot 63 the first 2 weeks before we opened. High school coach from Rockwall, I've known him several years, and he said, we want to have a preview of the course because we're having our district tournament there. I said, well, what better way for us to get started than have high school walk it? And they got a long walk, but Matthew really did a number on the course. He shot 63, and then of course the course record is held by Sam Burns. He shot 65. He's been out here 3 times with David Toms.
So 65 is from the tips then?
Yes, from the tips.
Okay, and Sam Burns, and by the way, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the name of the course there outside of Monroe. It was a Fazio that where he plays his golf. What is that golf course, Randy? Right down there near Monroe, Louisiana.
Eastridge?
No, that's my bad, folks. It's a Fazio course, the trucking magnet down there. The guy built it, wrote Fazio a check for $1 million, and Fazio returned his phone call, and built this golf course, which is spectacular on the front 9. The back 9 is good, but it's not as spectacular. But as you leave there, and this is ridiculous, I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, it is what it is. As you leave there, there's a giant scorecard. Sam Burns shot 60 on it. He shot 12 under par, 12 birdies, no bogeys on this very, very difficult golf course. And so he shot 65 at the Tempest, and the young man shot 63 from the middle tees in a high school tournament? The 63 that was shot by the young man was from the middle tees. Is that right?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And so this
the blue tees. You shot there from the blue tees.
Okay. So this year, what kind of events do you have coming up? I know you have the Christmas tournament every December, but that's a long way off. What are some of the things you have coming up event-wise?
We have a lot of nonprofit things up here. We have lumber tournaments. Cassie Jones will be here for a couple of days, and API Ullman tournaments, who raises money for scholarships at Kilgore College. We picked up 2 more oil field tournaments. So it's going to be another full schedule this year, much like we had last year.
And people, if they want to have an event, a charity event, they can contact you and you can help them or schedule that, right?
Yeah, we can do that, and we can do a lot of their advertising for them and save them some money on signs and GPS ads.
Okay. Any other things about the Tempest that I'm forgetting to talk about? Because I really appreciate you guys sponsoring the show. I can say without a reservation that it is a fun golf course to play. I guess one thing I would like to add about it is some dude shot 63 the first time he saw it, and you mentioned you weren't trying to build an overly difficult course. And now the elevation changes and the trees. You got to hit the ball down the fairway, and you got to hit it on the green and make a putt. But it can be had, right?
It can be had. The greens aren't, except for those two that are, really wild, just for difference. I did notice, you waited a while before you mentioned the wide open corridors, which are especially important to you, I imagine. But yeah.
Well, I want to be able to swing at the ball,
Yeah.
and I don't want to have to walk single file down the fairway. If that's what you mean.
What's unique about these wide fairways? They're wider than they look. You got so many mounds and this, that, and the other. A lot of uneven lies that make it. You better be prepared for that.
Well, that's just East Texas too. I mean, you're going to have a lot of downhill lies, uphill lies, and that kind of thing. And but it is an enjoyable course. You mentioned walking it. Yeah, that would be quite a challenge. And I remember Tony Romo tried to qualify for the U.S. Amateur in the heat of the summer over there. And Tony's in good shape. Don't get me wrong. But he played about 24 holes and decided he'd head on back to Big D.
He played 18 shots, 76 the first day, made it through 16. His back was hurting from earlier in the week, and he was on the range, and of course a couple of members were standing there watching him warm up, and he said, "Randy, you got any Advil? My back is killing me." And that was the first day before we even started. And one of my members piped up, "I'll get it." So he went and got him some Advil, and they became good friends. So
who did that?
Jimmy Rutland.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, walking in the heat is tough, but not as tough as maybe, having Lawrence Taylor, for lack of a better example, of somebody rushing at you to knock your head off. So, yeah, and I remember that day very well. Joe was there, Joe Bruno, and he said, "Owner's privilege." Tony, how did you find the course? And Tony is certainly a gentleman, and he said, "I love it." And he just shot 76, so he was disappointed, but he knew that he enjoyed the golf course. And I also remember, Randy, it's kind of funny. I don't know. I hope this is not wrong to say, but I thought, boy, I wonder how Tony, got up early and drove all the way to Longview and played 36 holes. Well, he didn't. He flew into Gregg County Airport and drove about 10 miles over to the golf course. But, he's got a good job, doesn't he? He's making pretty good money.
He sure is.
Yeah, and he's a good golfer.
Very good.
Very good golfer. Yeah. So you're starting your 5th year there at the Tempest.
Yes.
One other thing before we say goodbye, something I will always cherish was the way you opened the club at the Tempest. And you had Jackie Cupid, and you had Roy Pace, and you had Homero Blancas there. And you have this beautiful putting green designed by Mr. Brower down near below the clubhouse there. And you've got the nice rock with the plaque in there honoring the East Texas legends of golf. And to me, that's what it's all about, is to celebrate, where you're located and who are the guys that are very well thought of in that area. And those 3 guys have a great history in the Longview area.
Yes, they do. And, and who else was there was Pat Wheeler. He was our master of ceremonies, and, you did a great job, Pat. But that's one thing we decided for the opening tournament, opening round here at Tempest, that we would dedicate it to the legends of East Texas golf. And I can't think of 4 better guys or more deserving guys than those guys.
Jackie Cupid, who lipped out a putt at the Country Club in Brookline, Massachusetts, in the 1963 U.S. Open. He lost the next day to Julius Boris, and Arnold Palmer was the 3rd player in that playoff. Roy Pace, the pros pro, he still works with you, Randy, on the first tee out there 1 day a week, I think.
Yes.
And then if you really are a golf geek like me, you will be within about 10 to 15 minutes from the abandoned Premier Refinery off Premier Road, which is off Highway 80, which is the old Interstate 20, which connects Gladewater to Longview. And you can drive down and look at the abandoned Premier Refinery, and you can try to envision some of the holes that were there. It was a 5,100-yard course, so it was like 25, 59 holes times 2. But Homero Blanca shot 55, and no one's ever shot anything that low in competition, and I don't care if it's a putt-putt.
Yeah.
55 in a big-time Calcutta tournament to win it is something that he's forever known as Mr. 55. And so just that's a little bit of the history there, Randy.
Yes, that's outstanding history. And, I think he lives in the Houston area. And so it was great to get him down here. And he and Roy, Jackie, and Buster together. They're like I said, there's 4 great ones right there from, look at 4 from East Texas. So.
Yeah, and I will plug my new book, not When Golf Was Fun. When Golf Was Fun was my first book. My new book is The Fringe Runner, and I've got a section there, The Three Amigos, and that's Homero Blancas, Jackie Cupid, and Roy Pace. And then I also have the life and times of Buster Cupid, who's owned Longview Country Club close by since the late 60s. He's now 95 years young, doesn't play golf anymore, but still rides around a cart and talks to the golfers out there. So get over I'm sorry?
Buster, it's always great to go over there in the morning and just have a cup of coffee with him and listen to him talk about all kinds of stories. It's awesome.
You're right. And the picture that's in that golf shop of Buster Cupid and Jackie Cupid shaking hands with Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus on the final green at the PGA National there in West Palm Beach, Florida. And so, Randy, just thank you so much for being on. Thank you to Joe Bruno, Melanie Till, Stephen Killingsworth, everyone associated with the Tempest. Thank you, Jeff Brower, the designer of the course, for being on today and telling us a little bit about what all you're up to these days. We just want to celebrate golf on Hit It Where They Mow, and we want to celebrate it with a Texas slant. So, Randy, I look forward to seeing you soon over there in East Texas.
Please do. We look forward to seeing everyone out here.
You bet.
Make your way down here.
You bet. TempestGolfClub.com. Jeff Brower, thank you for being on. Any final word for me today on the world of architecture?
No, I think I need to get out there and play this year too. So
let's just plan on doing that.
We'll do it.
Okay. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Hit It Where They Mow, talking golf in Texas. Until then, hit it where they mow.
They say that golf's the greatest game. I'm here to tell you so. Harvey Penick said to take that aim and just hit it where they mow. Yeah, hit it where they mow.